Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Eccentric, the makers of the K-Box and the new K-Pulley. Guys, flywheel training's really grown in popularity of late, and although it's something that's been around for a while, the simple reason that it's grown in popularity is because it works. We've been lucky to have a K-Box in our weight room for the past 3 years, and we've seen some really great things when it comes to improving the athlete's ability to change direction, and then looking at our return to play protocols with different lower body injuries with the student athletes. The love-hate relationship that everyone has with the K-Box is now just going to grow more with the addition of the K-Pulley. The ability to do standing presses, pulls, rip-throughs, and knee drive exercises is just going to be another arsenal to our training and another addition to the love-hate relationship that our student athletes have with the awesome tools that come from Eccentric. Go ahead and hop over to eccentric.com today to check out what they have. Guys, I can't recommend it enough, and I guarantee you won't be disappointed, not just with the products, but with the awesome customer service that Eccentric provides. Hello, and welcome to the podcast. Today, guys, I have an absolutely killer talk with the Buffalo Bills assistant strength coach, Will Greenberg. Guys, after a real quick intro, Will is going to get into the impact that his 3 unique mentors have had on him, not just when it comes to how he trains athletes, but also managerially, how he handles his players as well. He also then dives down the rabbit hole of talking about how each of his spots and his different roles when it comes to the sporting world and working with different sports has impacted him and prepared him to be better prepared to work in the National Football League. We then get into, how they handle their players through the offseason and some of the unique circumstances around that, both the pros and the cons and the things that kind of hamstring them and how they try to work their way around it and really get the players to buy in and dive right in with what they're trying to do. And then we finish off, guys, talking about, this idea of structure governing function and not just how it is in the terms of training and programming and physical preparation, but how it is in the entire team structure and culture as a whole. This is really an awesome talk, guys. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Let's get right to it. Will, thank you so much for spending the time with us today.
Got it.
Hey, man. So I'm stoked to have a guy that's up in upstate New York right now on the show. But let's give everybody the quick Spark Notes version of, where you're at, how you got there, and what you're doing.
Yeah. Long stories. I'm sure every strength coach has a long story of where they get. So this is starting my 3rd year with the Buffalo Bills. I'll work backwards from there. Before I got here, I was the director of sports performance at a small FCS school, Southern Utah. Before that, I spent 2.5 years at Army West Point with their football team. And then actually before that, I had been in basketball. So I was at App State, and then I was a GA and assistant for Preston Green at both Florida and Clemson. But really, I've been all over the map. I've worked in college football. I've worked in college basketball. I've worked in the NFL now. And then I think it's important also to discuss that for the first year or 2 out of college, I was working in the private setting. I worked from everyone from the age of 3, 4, and 5 to 65, 66, up towards older population. So I've kind of spanned the whole spectrum. And I think that's helped me develop the approach that I take in terms of strength conditioning. I've seen a lot of different scenarios. I've talked to a lot of different people. I've had to coach in a lot of different ways. So I think that coming through actually from the basketball side really helped me to where I am now. Because, once you get indoctrinated into the football part of things, it's easy to be a little bit myopic because that's what you've only seen. Because, if you stay in football the whole time, all you've seen is football. So it definitely helped me out in the way that, I didn't take the traditional route. And I've also been around really good people, even in the private setting, Steve Handy, Tony Russo, who most people who hear this podcast may not recognize were huge influences on me. And then taking me into working with Preston Green and being introduced to Charles Poliquin and spending time with Charles Poliquin, in a time where he shaped me as a strength coach. And then going out to try those things on my own as I become a director somewhere and I get to try things that I've seen and, hey, does that work for me? This doesn't work for me, shape my own path. So everywhere I've kind of been, without being too long-winded like I am, is, I've learned and I've gone somewhere and implemented. And then I've learned, and I've gone somewhere to implement it. And now I'm back with the Buffalo Bills as an assistant, learning more about the professional side of things, how to be a professional in what I do, not just developing humans, but optimizing humans. So, it's been a journey. It will continue to be a journey, and hopefully I do the same thing going forward.
I love it. And what I love the most is I'm a huge Preston Green guy. We were talking off camera about our connections with the whole Stuckey family,
Mm-hmm.
with you with Ciano up there and me working for Stu for a while down here. But the Preston Green tree too, working under Brandon Horgan for a few years and
Yep.
competing against competing, like we really compete.
Mm-hmm.
When he was at UNC Charlotte and dude, such a super dude, and really an interesting educational path because you're talking, the Stuckey Hatch cycle family coming out of Tennessee and the late Charles Poliquin's, like, almost could say number one disciple. Those are two really different schools. So let's talk about how this is kind of melded together in your educational path with that.
And I'll add on the front end of that, Gary Gray and the biomechanics side of things is where, when I was in the private setting, I spent a lot of time people shaping me in, hey, understand biomechanics first. So I'll throw that in there as well. I mean, 3 completely separate, different approaches. And for me, it allowed me to open my eyes to, wow, there's more than one way to skin a cat. So I'm constantly questioning, constantly saying, hey, are you right? Am I right? Why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? Why am I doing this? I constantly question myself, other people. I constantly have conversations with people. I try to read as much as I can. Just like every strength coach, they put out how much they read, all these articles, different stuff. But to me, having conversations with people is, and seeing people's process and understanding their approaches, and not just in that small context. You might see something online or read something. Hey, there's a very small context of what we're trying to draw out. So being able to watch those processes from Gary Gray and people that I worked with there, to watching Preston, how he took Charles's method, principles and methods, and applied it to the collegiate setting, where now you have it in a group setting. You have it with guys who may not want to do what we're asking them to do. How do we get them to buy into that? And then in turn, when we get to the football side of things, and I have Tim Karen, who worked with AA and Ciano, of taking, since I had just been used to watching basketball, now all of a sudden we have, at Army, we had 125 guys on the roster, right? So now all of a sudden, hey, we have 3 groups, 40 guys coming through. We got an hour to get the most out of them. I mean, that was brand new to me the first time I got it. So, okay, I could sit back and watch Tim Karen, who I think is one of the best coaches I've ever watched, and see his process and how he controls a room and how he speaks to a room. And I could learn how to public speak better. And I come here and I watch Ciano and how professional and everything is set to a T and how he approaches things. So every person I've been with has taught me something different, has developed me in a way, whether they know it or not, has developed me by me watching them and learning from them. And that's really how I go about my learning process is, like I said, watching people, but spending time talking to people. So now that I'm not with Tim, for example, and he's in LA, he and I talk on the phone. I'm not even joking, every single day, right? It's like we're like a married couple. And for Tim, you can't get him off the phone. I mean, he's going to be speaking for 90 minutes at least if you're going to have a conversation with him. And then another guy, Brian Phillips, who worked with us at Army as well, same thing. If I hang out with Tim, I immediately call Brian. And the 3 of us are just constantly throwing things against each other. Hey, is this going to work? Is this going to work? Well, what are you seeing today? What did you get better at today? What did you fail at today? Just constantly talking. So, I've just been so lucky to be, like you said, being around people from different places, seeing different things, and learning their processes.
And then moving through those, there's been a lot of big steps when it comes to the coaching realm. So how was that time being an assistant and then running the show in basketball? How is that almost one-on-one-ish compared to what you were looking at Army? How has that led to that? And then how has that time at Army prepped you for your time in the NFL?
Yeah. So, when I was on my own in basketball, I was really implementing. It was, I mean, if you walked in, you were you were watching strict 4-second tempos, 8-second tempos, whatever was planned for that day. And I mean, I was MFing guys to make sure that that stuff was on cue, right? And we might have 2 guys in there, and they might be on separate programs. So from with Preston and from Charles's realm, and then going out on my own, I really learned how to train, like the importance of training properly. And I'm not even just talking about technique, but I'm talking about the rep being perfect, the tempo being perfect, the execution being perfect, everything from there. Like how do you train well? And it was probably a perfect transition in going to Army, because those guys are just so highly tuned. Like you tell them one thing and they run with it. I mean, they're so great to coach. Now I'm not saying they didn't mess up on anything, but once you fix them, they were perfect. So that helped me transition into that. And then from when I got there, I would say, hey, Tim, we should do this, this, and this. He's like, listen, it's not basketball anymore. You don't have one-on-one. Now we got 30 guys who are injured, upper body injured guys, when we first got there. Hey, we can't be doing external rotation off the knee with a 4-second tempo with everyone. Let's find a better way to do it. So it made me adapt to that. It made me adapt to understand what we could do. But then spending time, and a great question that you asked, I mean, spending time in Army, you're spending your time with players who are going to be the nation's future leaders. How humbling is that? How humbling is it that this guy that you're teaching from just an empty barbell, how to clean, how to snatch, how to squat, how to move, this guy, he couldn't do anything when he first got it. In 4 years' time, he's going to graduate as a second lieutenant. And then 4 years from then, he might be a captain. He might have moved on. And one day he might be a general of the U.S. Army. I mean, he's going to be leading men. So what the cool part about that is that you're leading these young men to become men, and they're going to go ahead and model what you do for them with all the soldiers that they will have in their presence, years ahead of time. So I still keep in contact with a lot of those guys. Some of my greatest relationships are from my 2.5 years at West Point. But the cool thing about that is you saw the process of building leadership. And then it doesn't matter where you go from here, from high school to college to the NFL, anywhere from there, you're constantly going to be trying to figure out, number one, how to lead people, but then also how to develop leaders. So, I mean, it was the greatest transition in my life of I can watch this unfold over a few years of how these people transition, how you can speak to them, how you can develop them, the ways you can make them better as leaders of other people.
That's awesome, especially when you're dealing with a team right now that's got a bunch of young guys in the main leadership positions.
Oh, yeah. With the Bills, you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think a third of our team was first and second year guys last year. So, and you're absolutely right. And our coach talks about that a lot. We're developing people to be the best version of themselves, and that's constantly what we're trying to do. So, every stop that I've had, I've tried to find a way, or try to learn from what I've done right or wrong there, of how to make people the best versions of themselves. And then, anywhere you go, any business you're in, that's what you're trying to do. If you're leading people in any way, or you're trying to help develop or optimize people in any ways, how do we take this person and make them the best version of themselves?
1,000%. But now when you're dealing with these men in the NFL, there's a lot of instances where you could be hamstrung in that. So let's talk about some of those new challenges that you've had these last few years, and going from the almost 12-month athlete that you have in the NC2A to dealing with everything that comes along with the collective bargaining agreement.
Yeah. I mean, you have limitations. Here's the thing. You have limitations in any realm, like high school, college, NFL, right? In college, for example, you had to deal with class scheduling. Here, we don't have that, right? So there's certain ebbs and flows. There's certain positive and negatives to each situation. Obviously, we don't have them as long period of time as we do in college. But at the same time, you got to think these guys, if they're playing the NFL, most likely have had some development training. Let's say the first maybe a couple of years in high school, 3, 4, 5 years in college, a few years in the league. it's not that we're needing to develop them for long periods of time, right? Obviously, the more training time we have with them, the better, and that's going to be great. But they're highly adaptable athletes. They've trained for long periods of time in their life. Their reserve to be strong is so great that we're constantly fine tuning them. So we have to be clever in our ways to make sure that we're training them, understanding those principles, like understanding that, hey, we're going to have a short development period. You can call it a short time in the off season with them. They're going to train on their own for a little bit, but now we have this massive block of time with them in the in season, right? 4 or 5 weeks in preseason, and then a 17-week season, hopefully 4 or 5 weeks in the postseason. Well, that's half a year that we have training time available to us. How do we make that last? How do we make an impact in that time? And if we have a guy on a multi-year contract, then we know that that training period right there hopefully can move into next year. And hopefully we do a good enough job. And I'm like you said, you're from Western New York. Most guys aren't going to stay around Buffalo. But shoot, we've had 15 different guys in this winter, and it's been, below zero. Hopefully we do a good enough job that they know that they're going to come back. They're going to train with us in the off season, meaning, January, February, March, etc. And when we come back April 15th, or they've done it on their own, they're still ready to go and they're still training. They understand the importance of it. So really, in my opinion, the NFL, you got to be a salesman just like any personal trainer out there that, hey, training is important. Training is important. Training in the right way is important. And we've done a good enough job that we let you be autonomous outside of the building. You're doing it just the same as you would inside our building. So, I think we have a lot of really good players, and, I'm excited for that.
So then how do you handle those that don't have quite the intestinal fortitude to handle Western New York in the lovely months of February and March?
They're going to be able to train on their own. So, we give them a program what we think is best practice for them in that time. And they'll go to their home or wherever they're going to be traveling around that time. Because, rightfully so, they get a good break there. So they'll be able to train on their own with our program. Whether some go to personal trainers, some do some things out on their own, that's up to them. And we can't really contact them because of the CBA. But when they are here, we're going to give them the best practice of training that we can give them.
I love that, because I can see how that could be a challenge, more so for you guys than other places, unfairly, because it can be tough up there. And a lot of these guys are going to be from more warmer weather climates.
Sure.
And have access to being, like if you're from Alabama and Texas,
mm-hmm.
You can be outside training right now, which unfortunately, when, in Rochester, New York, the only way I was going to be outside training is if I had my skates and my gloves on and I was out there stick handling.
Yeah.
But then how now do you guys look at this and make sure, because again, like if these guys are on their own, what I think could be a fun challenge is like, because they're professionals, they have to make sure they're doing what's best for number one. But because it's a team, everyone needs to be able to set and hit predictable standards.
Mm-hmm.
So are there standards that you guys have set for them? Are there evaluations like we would have when they return to campus? Or is this more of a thing like they just need to be ready to practice?
Yeah, we have our standards. We're gonna screen guys when they come in, and especially medically, see where they are. But generally, it's interesting. The game changes so fast that certain positional norms will change year by year. We're not gonna one rep max. We're not gonna first day back. Hey, let's see where our one rep max. We're gonna ease into training, see where we're at. In terms of testing, like as we go through training, we see where guys are. We understand where they are. And we're a long way out from the season. So, it's a little, we make sure that we do all our screening that we do here. But yeah, you get so many new guys in a year. it's kind of chaotic at first, but that's one of the fun challenges is making sure those guys are getting the training that they need individually.
And I think that another fun challenge in a different way that I think relates to your time in college basketball is the actual length of the entire competitive calendar.
Oh yeah.
Now, how has that view changed from your time at Clemson and then down in the swamp and then, up on the mountain,
Yep.
and now moving to Army and then now, in upstate New York? I
Yeah.
can see that, October to March. I mean, that's
Yeah. That's a
September
long
now
season.
is a
Yeah.
long season for basketball
Right.
with different challenges. But how could that preparation professionally have assisted? Or what are some things that you see that we're doing in college basketball that couldn't work, or things you're doing better in the NFL now that you've seen this on the outside?
Just consistent training. I mean, keeping guys on the court, keeping guys on the field. I think in basketball, it's starting to become more prevalent that guys are actually training, lifting weights, getting under load in some capacity to keep their tissues healthy. I get that's not always been the case in basketball, and I think yourself and Preston and a bunch of these guys have really pushed that. And you see the same thing in football. I mean, obviously football lifts weights a little bit more, as the necessity is obviously there. But throughout a season, keeping guys under load is the same thing. We need guys healthy for 16 plus games. We know that we need to put some load on them systematically to keep them healthy for each week, let alone optimized for each week or fresh towards the end of the year. So it's balancing those loads, whether it be from practice to the weight room to stress management and how we're mitigating any factors. But the same thing goes in basketball, same thing goes in any sport. But the longer the sport, the longer the training period you get from just consistently being there.
Now I want to touch on something that you talked about, because this is something that fascinates me, especially looking at it from different sports. You talked about optimizing and loads and things of that nature. How are you tracking these guys, and how are you making sure, to the best of your ability, to the best of Eric and Will's ability, that you are optimizing and managing these loads both in practice and with training?
Yeah.
To make sure that, those – we're going to hear the Bills make me want to shout more often, and things are going to keep moving that way.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good research, a lot of good literature, and we have our metrics that we keep. But I think a lot of this comes to conversations with guys. I mean, we're gonna, we have GPS, we have a lot of different load measuring systems that we look at, and we try to boil it down to what's most important. But at the end of the day, all those are conversation starters as well. Hey, screening was here, load was here. Hey, I might need to have a conversation with a guy. Hey, how you doing? How you feeling? What's this looking like? How you feeling sore? And in college, that's a real conversation to have, because guys are going to be there for 4 years, and they're very open to that. Whatever level, when guys trust you, they're going to be open with, hey, this is nagging me, or I'm feeling this, or I'm feeling that. I didn't sleep well last night. But a lot of these things are just conversation drivers. Oh, well, you're feeling like this. Here's the antidote. Because everyone wishes. I wish that there was this standard metric that said, this guy is ready to play. This guy is not ready to play. This is how much he should do. This is how much he shouldn't do. This is exactly what to do. But it's not. We're not there yet, and we'll probably never get there, because there's a human aspect to all of this. And that human aspect is having the conversation with someone, having the trust and the buy-in to say, hey, whatever is ailing you, I'm going to do my best to help fix it. Let's get on the same page. Let's figure this out. And let's do the interventions that are necessary to keep you healthy for as long as possible.
Yes. But then the difference, too, between the young men that you had the opportunity to work with in college and the young men that you're working with in the NFL is a contract. How often do you feel that could limit some of that communication? That a guy might be dinged up and might need some time and might need a day off, but they're just afraid of losing their job?
Sure. I mean, structure governs function. You know, but human beings are human beings. I mean, if they want to feel a sense of purpose and autonomy and a sense of trust from their coach. And for me, they try. I find a way to develop relationships with as many people as I can, so that they can trust in the fact that I'm trying to help them out as best I can, and I'm impartial to who I'm helping. You know, and as long as my athletes know that about me, then you don't run into those issues as much as you think.
I love that. Structure governs function. Let's
Yep.
run down that rabbit hole a little bit. And let's
Sure.
discuss what that actually means so people can get their heads
Sure.
around it.
I mean, it's a common quote in biomechanics, right? The way that you are structured is going to govern how the body's going to function. But to me, it applies to culture. Everyone talks about, you know, quote unquote culture all the time. And then it also leads back to a quote that Tim Karen used to always say, that when he said it the first time, it etched in my brain, is that you'll be great at what you emphasize and you get what you tolerate. So if I want to emphasize something all the time, we're going to be great at that, right? If I want to emphasize standing on one leg and quacking like a duck, we're going to be really great at that if we do it all the time. And I tell guys, they believe me, that that's important. So whatever you find is important, you want to emphasize that so the team can be great at that, or the player can be great at that. And then on the flip side is, if you tolerate whatever you want to tolerate, right, whatever you allow to happen is what you're going to get on a consistent basis. So, you know, obviously all strength coaches are very disciplined and structured. Hey, discipline, 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 discipline. Well, that's true. You know, we don't want to tolerate much. We don't want to tolerate guys being late. We don't want to tolerate skipping sets, skipping reps. But if you tolerate that once, you're going to get it over and over again. All of a sudden it becomes an issue, right? So to me, in your culture, the way that you structure things governs how things function and how your culture grows. And so I sometimes think a little bit abstractly philosophical. And I kind of see it as like a swimming pool. Like, everyone's got a round swimming pool. And this is the other way I see structure governs function. And as strength coaches and coaches, we're all trying to fill up the water into that pool as best we can, right? Oh, I'm going to do it like this. I'm going to do it like this. Well, guess what? Everyone's got the same size pool. Everyone's got the same shape pool. Well, if you want to be a disruptor of an industry, if you want to change the way things are done, you want to change the landscape of what being a strength coach looks like, you then have to change the structure of the pool, right? So by changing the structure of the pool, I mean, okay, let's think outside the box, right? I recently went out to Australia and saw how some of these high performance directors were approaching performance and communication amongst the team, and the way things are done. And it's just thinking outside the box. Of it doesn't have to be, hey, let's just talk about sets, reps, and tempo all the time. You know, there's a lot of things that go into making of a team, making of a human being, and it's a constantly evolving dynamic structure every year, because you have new players, you have new coaches, you have new thoughts and ideas, and you have new struggles outside of the facility. So the way that you structure what you want in the weight room, and I know I kind of got a little off topic philosophical, but the way you structure things in the weight room, and you like you say, hey, this is how it's going to look. This is how us as coaches, we're going to coach you. Hey, this is how I want the players to interact. Hey, this is where I want to set my racks up so that guys interact in a certain way. They have collisions throughout a day. You know, hey, this is where I do this. That's going to determine your function. So you have to understand that, you know, it's not just a weight room and you're a coach and sets of reps. There's a whole structure to that, and understanding that, looking outside, okay, like let's zoom out and look at everything. Or guys are skipping reps. Well, why are they skipping reps? Right? Was it not clearly communicated? Was it because the guy hasn't bought into your system? Was it because the guy he's next to on the rack, they're arguing about some girl? I mean, like, there's a lot of things that go into the functioning of a day-to-day process, and the function ends up being, well, daily behaviors and your outcome. So it's, you know, it is a biomechanics adage, but at the end of the day, it's you can make it whatever you want.
Yes, absolutely sensational. Well, that's fantastic stuff, man. Well, let me get you out of here on this, brother. Where can people find more about you? Where can they see what you're doing? Where can they keep up with you?
Honestly, I'm so mixed on social media. I don't know whether I want to tweet about things or just sit back and get rid of it all. So, I mean, I do have a Twitter. I think it's @coach_Will G. But honestly, I find my phone number from someone. Like I always tell people that I talk to, my interns, my old assistants, people that I meet, like, call me up and I will have an hour conversation with you every day if you call me. Like I will, and I'll get something from it. You'll get something from it. But really, the only two people that have ever taken me up on that are Brian and Tim. And to this day, we still talk every single day. We just talk and talk and talk and communicate. So, if you find my number, feel free to call me at any point, text me. Like that's really the best way to get in touch with me. But
I love it, man. And giving back and helping people out and sharing information is the way to go, brother.
Yeah.
Well, I truly appreciate your time, Will. This is sensational. People are going to love it, man.
I appreciate you.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you so much, and we'll be in touch soon.
Cool. Take it easy.
You too. And a huge thanks to Will Greenberg for spending the time with us today. Guys, open, honest, candid sharing. And let's just get to it. Like, this idea of structure governing function, not just when it comes to, the obvious stuff that we think of when we're talking about physical preparation or strength and conditioning, looking at whether you want to look at it as a joint by joint approach or whatever it may be, looking at it now all encompassing when it comes to your entire organization, whether it be the culture from the top down or organization or whatever it is. It's really sensational stuff. I can't thank Will enough for spending the time with us today. This is absolutely killer stuff. And Will, best of luck up there. Selfishly, rooting for you hard, brother. As an upstate New York guy and a big Bills fan, I can't thank you enough for your time and all your work with the guys up there. And as always, guys, if you did enjoy the talk, please share it through the social media outlet of your choice. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, whatever it may be. As always, we are just trying to get the best information out there to all the great coaches that we can. And as always, guys, thank you for everything that you do for us here at Central Virginia Sport Performance. We will be back next week with another awesome guest. We will see you then.